can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted to be joined by Elliot Grigg. We are once again in preview mode, but before we get into it, please do like and subscribe to the channel if you're not doing so already. All of your boxing needs up and under one roof. Plenty of content coming your way on an almost daily basis. Previews, reviews, big fight breakdowns, betting tip shows, fight reaction, everything you can think of, we've got you covered. So please do check out the rest of the channel. This time though, we are in preview mode. As I said, Elliot and I usually in preview mode for a WBC World Lightweight title fight at the Louis Armstrong Stadium in Queens, New York, as Shakur Stevenson aims to defend his title against the undefeated William Zepeda. Yeah, good fight. Undefeated against undefeated, 23-0 against 33-0. Looking forward to this one, mate. What are your initial thoughts? And give me a quick prediction as well before we go into some other maybe topics around the lightweight division and so on and so forth. But yeah, your thoughts and predictions for Stevenson Zepeda on 12th of July.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Paul. Thank you for the eloquent introduction. Also, I think for this one, it's nice to actually have Shakur Stevenson kind of fighting someone of this kind of caliber. To be honest with you, I feel like since the sort of Valdez, Conceição days, we've kind of had a run of kind of fairly average fights. And don't get me wrong, nothing against obviously Josh Padley, a hero to the show and a friend of the show. But you know, it's nice to see Shakur Stevenson actually in with a sort of live opponent. To be honest with you, though, I feel like. You look at Zepeda and you think, okay, like at one point you look at him going, oh, a lot of KOs in that record, like obviously carries power. But when he sort of stepped, like the last few fights against Tevin Farmer, hasn't been that impressive, really. Like you'd expect probably someone like if he was really legit at that time to sort of stop someone like Farmer in concussive fashion rather than sort of be dragged into two decisions. And then you look down at some of the other, I mean, obviously Maxi Hughes retired, obviously in that fight as well, didn't he? But you look at like, I mean, maybe has he been stopping people that have a certain caliber, but when he gets to a certain like opposition, he can't necessarily do it. That's kind of my thought when it comes to Zepeda. So I actually feel like Stevenson will have. I think Stevenson will have far too much, frankly, for him. I think he'll win a wide points decision. I don't think he's going to stop Zepeda, frankly. But also look at Zepeda and go, at one point I might have gone, what if he hits Stevenson? What if he lands? Could he stop him? Don't think he's going to. I really don't, based on the sort of recent performances either. I think he could have too much. I actually think it's going to be Stevenson UD, frankly. Fairly wide, fairly convincing. And then I think really we want to see after this kind of Stevenson and someone like we talk about them in the division all the time, like some of those names down there. We want to see basically Stevenson in with some of the big names in the sort of division, Tank being one of them. That's the sort of fight we really want, really. But I don't see this being. I don't see this being difficult for Stevenson. I really don't, which is a weird thing to say as a sort of high level fight, but I see it being kind of just a convincing UD victory, sort of 8-4, 9-3 sort of distance. It may be even wider.
Yeah, mate, I keep it short and sweet. I completely agree. I think I was pretty high on William Zepeda actually up until his last two fights against Tevin Farmer. Arguably got beat in one of them, maybe. The first one definitely potentially got beat. Again, yeah, and like, yeah, Tevin Farmer, former world champion, great fighter, but like at this stage, you would have expected Zepeda, the run he was on, to kind of deal with him easily enough. Didn't deal with him easily at all either time, a split decision and a majority decision, as you said. Um, but yeah, I think Shakur Stevenson could maybe win every round, to be honest with you, mate. I just think he's levels above William Zepeda, well, levels above everyone in the lightweight division, bar, maybe potentially Tank, which is a fight I really want to see, and we'll maybe come on to that in a minute. But yeah, can't really add much more to what you said, mate. I expect Shakur Stevenson to win this. I don't think he stops Zepeda. Although he did stop Josh Padley last time out, I suppose. But that was on what, 4 days notice, 5 days notice, whatever it was. So yeah, I do think Shakur Stevenson wins. I think he wins a really wide unanimous decision. It would not surprise me if he won every single of the 12 rounds. So yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Both in agreement there. But I want to kind of come back to maybe a few potential fights. And a name we've mentioned there, mate, is Gervonta Tank Davis. Looks like he'll probably be rematching Lamont Roach. Obviously, their draw last time out didn't look great, Tank, but been unbelievable before that. One punch KO power, just knows how to shut people's lights out. If that was to be a fight that happens in, say, early 2026, um, and say Tank beats Roach, Stevenson beats Zepeda, that fight early 2026, around January, February, whatever. Who wins? Shakur Stevenson, Gervonta Tank Davis.
Also, I'm a massive Toronto Davis fan, but I can't sit here and make a case for beating because Stevenson. I really can't. I feel like that's one thing you could say about Tank. Obviously, is his power is legit. If he catches Stevenson, Stevenson could go. I think that's a fair thing to say. But I just got a feeling that I don't know, and he's fought decent guys, today. Like he gets a lot of obviously, he gets a lot of tap for not necessarily fighting some of the guys who want to see him in with, obviously that division, which I think is fair. But some of the guys he has fought have been sort of legit fighters as well. Recently looking at obviously like Frank Martin Garcia, obviously what happened there as well. I think those are good wins. So I just feel like if it comes down to, I feel like Shakur would be almost like a Mayweather performance from Shakur. Like you're thinking like don't take any risks, but kind of just tick off rounds. I can see that kind of happening. Even though Tank is kind of obviously he's got very much very sort of quick as well as powerful, so he's got obviously the capability to kind of land those fast switch fibers on Stevenson as well. I just still feel like I'd have to say that I think Stevenson points would be where if I had a pot of gold and I was heading on down to William Hill or Ladbrokes, other bookmakers are available. I'd put it on Stevenson to win, I think, to be perfectly honest with you, in that one by points. How about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think my opinions on this. I've always thought Stevenson beats Tank, but there was always that element of doubt in my head that there's a high probability that Tank would just land and could switch his lights out, as we've seen before. He's been down on the cards a few times, Tank, and just pulled it out of the bag. And that's not just saying he's only a puncher. He's got more about him than that. But like, I just almost see, Shakur Stevenson in my mind is unbeatable at lightweight, really. Which we'll come on to next. Kind of answered the question I want to ask you, but like, yeah, I just can't see anyone beating him at lightweight, including Tank Davis. Could I see Tank landing and making it interesting? Maybe, but like, yeah, I ultimately just see Stevenson dancing his way to another points victory as well. Seems to kind of be the theme with Shakur Stevenson. But yeah, he's just that good, really, isn't he? So yeah, but I mean, would love to see that fight. There will definitely be Tank backers if that fight was to happen, particularly if Tank maybe got back to his best and looked good in a rematch with Roach. So yeah, it's a fight I want to see, mate. It's the biggest fight in the lightweight division still. So yeah, hopefully we see it and hopefully we find out whether we would be correct in the Shakur Stevenson points victory or not. Just before we round off, mate, I kind of alluded to it there and almost answered my own question, but we're both going for him to beat Zepeda here. We're both going for him to beat Tank. Is there anyone else at lightweight that you can even make a case for beating Shakur Stevenson, or do you see that him being basically unbeatable at 135 pounds?
Yeah, I feel like to be honest with you, that's the only one that's close to be honest with me is Tank. I feel like Tank and Sakura are kind of way above the rest really in that division. I know obviously the Tank looked fairly disappointing last time out, but I still have him at his best as much better than anyone else in that division as well, other than Shakur Stevenson. I think you look at other names that are kind of coming through like sort of Keyshawn Davis, whatever, and I still feel like there's he's obviously a young guy and needs more kind of fights, more experience to sort of get up to that level. Barancic's a good fighter, obviously down there as well. But I think these two guys separate than everyone. I feel like with Stevenson, you're looking at. We've talked about it for some time on the channel, haven't we? Like really, if he gets the right partners, is almost kind of a generational talent. At the same time, it's just a question of whether he gets the actual opportunity to demonstrate that. Which I'm not sure, to be honest with you, he will, unless he can, just because the names that are down there are kind of not as strong as other divisions. Which you kind of need, don't you? I mean, they were obviously at one point. They've obviously had people with like injuries and retirements and not fighting each other and all that sort of nonsense that boxing kind of throws up. But yeah, I feel like Stevenson for me is unbeatable at 135. I haven't seen any signs of him kind of showing that he can be beaten. And the only thing really we're talking about, aren't we? We're talking about a Hail Mary punch from Tank really as being what we kind of think might sort of derail the train. But other than that, I think young guy 27, I think to be honest with you, he could dominate that division for some time or move around and dominate others as well. So yeah, unbeatable at 135 pounds to be in complete agreement.
Yeah, can't really disagree, mate. I think obviously the Keyshawn Davis one would have been potentially interesting. He was looking good at 135, but obviously he's moving up to 140 now, having failed to make weight against last time out there, which his fight obviously got pulled, so he's no longer the belt holder there. I would maybe like to see Stevenson add a couple more belts potentially at 135. Could he become undisputed before maybe moving up? He's already a three-weight world champion. Like, is he big enough to maybe even move up to 140? Because you're starting to fight a lot bigger guys up there. That would be interesting. I do believe at this stage he's more or less unbeatable at 135. The only name I will throw in, which might sound mad to some people because he's only had 6 pro fights, is Andy Cruz. Just because of that amateur background, that pedigree that he has from the Cuban roots. So like he's really, really special fighter. Um, he's maybe the only one where you think, okay, there's a little bit of something there that he could trouble Shakur Stevenson with, but ultimately, I can't sit here and say no, right here, right now that Andy Cruz beats Shakur Stevenson. I need to see more from Cruz in the sense of becoming world champion first, beating another maybe fringe world level fighter, some established names before that. But right here, right now, he's the only one that you could even maybe make a case for winning, making a competitive fight, and really, which as I said, sounds ridiculous, as you said when we were talking about a guy like Tank. But yeah, just goes to show the level of Shakur Stevenson. To be honest with you, mate, he's a world class fighter. He's one of the pound for pound best fighters in the sport. Um, Probably will be right up at the top of those pound for pound rankings when the likes of Usyk, Crawford, who they all retire. Even Inoue won't be around forever. Is it Shakur Stevenson the next one, kind of to fly the flag as a pound for pound star, potentially, but maybe needs a few more stoppages for that. But yeah, I think he's just that good, mate. He's almost unbeatable at 135. And do you know what? Like, is it going to be the weight that beats him? Kind of like we saw with Lomachenko when he went up to 135 and then ultimately started getting beat. Would that be the case with Shakur up at 140, even 147? Like he's not a big enough guy for that, but he's just so good he might end up doing that and coming up against someone who's just too big for him. But who knows, mate? He's for me right here, right now, yeah, still unbeatable at 135. Just goes to show you the level of a fighter we are talking about with Shakur. But mate, I've enjoyed this conversation. That's all we have time for this week's preview, unfortunately. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on whether Shakur Stevenson unbeatable, how he fares against Tank, how he fares this fight against William Zepeda on Saturday night. Let us know. Yeah, and as always, who do hit that subscribe button if you're not doing so already. Like the video, drop in the comment. And Elliot, thank you very much for your time as always, mate. Absolute pleasure, and I will speak to you again next week.
Thank you very much, Paul, and as always, guys, thank you very much for watching.